Hello, marhaba.
Marhaba.
Marhabteen.
Really delighted to be here to talk about this very important topic of beneficiation and downstream value created from minerals that we've had so much discussion about today. So beneficiation, the value adding economic value, removing impurities and processing minerals. We're going to talk about resource nationalisation and we're going to talk about industrial hubs. And I have an incredible group of speakers who bring a vast experience to this conversation. So I'll start with the virtual actually. We have Mr. Steele Lee who's joined us. Delighted to have Steele join us virtually. He wasn't able to travel. So he is the Vice Chairman and CEO of CMOC Group, China Molybdenum. Molybdenum, of course, being a very important mineral for alloys, particularly for engines. We have Mr. Suleiman Al-Athiem, who is the chair of Saudi Gold Refinery.
Yes.
And gold, of course, we all know what gold is for. We have Mr. Mashari Al-Ali, who is the CEO of Golden Compass. And Golden Compass is a very interesting firm that provides consulting services to the sector and so brings a different perspective. We have Mr. Fadi Trabzuni, who is the MD of AIMC, which is a Tashnaya affiliated company, and AIMC works with titanium, which, as many of us know, is a very light, high-strength metal that's really important for medical uses and for aerospace. And last but not least, we have His Excellency Minister Dr. Musaddiq Malik, who's the Minister of State from Pakistan. He's had a very busy schedule and he will be coming onto the stage shortly. So there's been a lot of discussion in the region about beneficiation and adding value to minerals. And if we're to meet the demand that we are seeing, and it has been such a focus of this conference, the demand for future minerals and metals, we're going to need to be able to beneficiate and add value to those metals. So, and the Saudi 2030 vision specifically refers to beneficiation. So let's dive into the questions. So my first question to my panelists is, so I'm going to ask each of them, what do you see as the two most critical, the 2 or 3 most critical success factors based on your experience for countries and companies to add value to mined products through beneficiation? And I'm particularly interested in that partnership between government and companies. So what are the 2 most critical success factors for creating the right kind of environment to enable beneficiation? So I won't start with you, Mashari. I'm going to start with Suleiman, if I may.
The most important for the success is the collaboration between the Ministry of Wealth and Industrial and the private sector by providing for them easy access for their license. This is number 1. Number 2, the easy process it's contained with the rest of the government body like environment, like other resource, which is a speed up the executive, the operation of the mine to be reached to the goal of it and producing whether copper, whether gold, whether as that. And so far from the new law, we has been seeing very fast reaction and development by the ministry, which has been enhanced the private sector to be more active and more able to invest. And that is a golden opportunity. And one of the success which we are receiving being today in this FMF, which is a great support from the government by enhancing the world come together with the local miners and the international miners, where they come together for making success and making the mineral to supply to the world by repeating the story for oil stability in the world, petrochemical stability in the world and supply. And this is the third blue for the government, which we are a part of it and a good player of that development. All that is happened because of the support of the government, giving the license, giving the funds, giving the opportunity, making colleagues to come together, having a community for the miners in the Chamber of Commerce, where they meet and they discuss the issue, and the government facilitates that problems that's happening in the mining to make the business for them easy. And we has been seeing the last 5 years a tremendous change in the mining sector in Saudi Arabia, and we will be seeing in the next 7 years up to the 2030 a lot of activity and a lot of mining. It has been approached and doing, and that's because of the support and the collaboration between the private sector and the government.
Thank you. So collaboration and creating the right kind of conditions to enable the integration of mining and processing and beneficiation.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And
Thank
also now the vision to have the mine, to have the refinery, to have the end product. The Saudi vision to have the 4-chain. This 4-chain, it's already happened in my company, because we are a gold miner, we are a gold refinery, we are a gold manufacturer, we are a retailer or distributor. So the 4-channel is available. The government, they want to have the private sector or the company who are willing to invest, they mine the ore body, they make the product, refine it, and they make the product and they export it to the world, because they want to enhance opportunity for the youth to learn and to get secure job and to develop this industry. And I believe this is very soon, it's already, very soon, it's open up, because of now the majority of the university here, which we have 7 universities, some of them, they are a leader in the mining, geological and the mining engineers. They are teaching at the university. Plus, there is another university, it's in all over Saudi Arabia. They are opening this field to open and to start new classes, which means the government from the top level, they are already prepared the manpower to activate in the sector, which is success, because we can take a part of their support by collaboration between the education outcome and the training in the mine sector, where we'll have the youth to be well trained in this sector and experts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So that building capability to enable the vertical integration that you described.
Yes.
Building capability. Thank you very much, Suleiman.
We have a sample worldwide. It is SABIC, Aramco. This is a sample which has been done by the government 50 years or 70 years ago. Now we are repeating our part in the mining sector.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to turn to Fadi now. Perhaps you could give us your perspective, Fadi, on what do you see as being the critical success factors, building on what Suleiman has spoken about.
Great points mentioned by Abu Faisal. Creating that great environment is very important. I believe what the kingdom has created from an economical evolution point of view is key, and it's a golden opportunities for the kingdom and its alliances to achieve an accelerated goals for the diversification strategy. We have, as usual, new challenges with every new industry. And those challenges need to be understood very well. I think that help all of us to understand what we are about to face, because what we care about at the end of the day is we sustain these industries and we make sure that they really reward us for those investments. I believe this is a whole different ballgame from oil and gas, industry that had led the way for economical development for the past 40 to 50 years. I can share briefly the insight from our business, from the titanium industry. It's a very strategic material that has been used for many years, and it will continue to be critical for industrial infrastructure projects, aerospace applications and developments, and human well-being like medical implants. Titanium has found its way to the kingdom, and we are, as we speak, developing that fully integrated industrial hub. We have started a long time ago, 30 years, with titanium dioxide pigment, gaining the customer base, the appreciation, and the trust from the clients. That has enabled us really to expand our footprint and expand more to diversify our industry. And that was very key for the continuation of our journey. I really admire the private sector taking, that courage to bring those industries and take the risk with them, from an investment point of view, because fiscal risk is very important. We have to pay attention to the fiscal risk. Fiscal risk can really slow down those developments. It could push back, the realization of the vision parts that we want to achieve. However, in 2012, we continued that journey, invested about $1.5 billion in 2 projects for beneficiation and metal production in Jazan and Yanbu, Royal Commission cities. Started to make products. We make 3 products today that are made for the first time in the kingdom and the region.
Yes.
The black sand, which is the titanium ore, the titanium metal that are qualified for aerospace applications, and the pig iron, which is also very important for our steel industries. So really, I admire that journey. It takes a long time to develop these projects. We have to make sure that there is a required attention to the risk and challenges associated with these industries, and go and work with the government to make sure that there are good enablers to overcome all of these challenges.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Fadi. And I believe that, that His Excellency Dr. Malik is in the house. So if you would please join us on stage. Lovely to see you, Dr. Malik. Thank you. Please take a seat. So I'll come to you. I'll give you a moment to take your breath, because I'm going to go to Mashari, and then I haven't forgotten you, Steele. So perhaps if you could give us a couple of quick comments in your thoughts, please, Mashari.
Thank you, Wendy. First of all, I would like to thank all of you to come today. As my colleague said, that one of the main success factors here in Saudi Arabia to enable the mining sectors more and more, along with government support, which is to create hubs for the services. So one of the main things that we figure out during the last 8 years that working in Golden Compass as a service and mining and geological service providers, that there is a many of of the gaps in the sectors. One of the main gaps that is exporting, and right now the government, they are trying to fix that helps and to create a deep sea seaboard, and also that to create a mineral hub. That mineral hubs enables companies to do all the fabrications, maintenance, and the other things. As you know, that the big mining companies always they have a logistics issues. One of the main logistics issues, as you know, that is increasing the price during the COVID-19 during the last 2 years, and that is affect badly the sectors in different ways, and that's the impact is still ongoing, and the prices for the shipment and the logistics is increase. So one of the main things and competitive advantage that Saudi Arabia could create is to create a hub, a mineral hub, metallic hubs here. And I believe one of the main success factors that Saudi have the capability to do that things with the price of energy, the low logistics locations. This is the best spots they can serve Africa, North of Africa, Asia, and also the access for the Europe as well.
Fantastic, thank you, Mashari. And we're going to talk about hubs and clusters next. I'm going to ask Steele now, from your perspective, and Steele, you have molybdenum operations around the world. What do you see as being the most critical aspects, that the one or two most critical aspects to enable successful beneficiation?
Thank you, Wendy. Hope my connection is good. Of course, we're not only producing moly, quite a lot of other things. But I think to answer your question, maybe we need to define on the downstream, because we as a mining company, I think all the midstream and downstream compared to our mining is upstream. We will look at is all downstream. Because you ask the two most critical factors. I think from my perspective, I think a couple of things are very important. One is the infrastructure, and the other is the ecosystem, and of course the policy. I'm talking about the policy from the government, and the technology, and the skillful labor force. But if you ask me to just to rank number one and number two, and I will put the policy and the infrastructure from our perspective, because I think policy. This is exactly, I think, connected to your point, is regarding to the government. This is representing the vision and the ambition from the government, and it will be translated into the policies. Those policies will attract more investment. So when I talk about the ecosystem, it is very important, because you look at the downstream, it's not isolated, it's all connected. And do you have the associated industry to support for you to develop the downstream? It's the ecosystem, but the ecosystem is actually coming from the attractiveness, and the attractiveness is coming from the policy. So I think the policy does play a very important role. When I talk about, why I talk about the infrastructure, because again, as a mining industry, when we look at the downstream, infrastructure is always very important, not only for the mining business, but also for the downstream. So here, infrastructure covers a lot of things, right? We talk about this, logistics-wise, whether it's efficient, because again, it's depending on what kind of downstream industry you're talking about. But like logistics efficiency, the energy availability, and the cost of that, and of course, like the port facility, road access, water recycling, everything, right? I mean, it's the whole infrastructure that can support for the investor to develop the downstream. And again, it's related to to the ambition from the government. That's why I think the government is building up the industrial park, because that will provide sufficient associated infrastructure that the downstream investor needed.
Thank you.
I'll stop there. Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks, Steele. So that's a really nice segue, Minister. So we've heard, some of the things we've heard are ecosystems, you just heard. We've heard about collaboration between the private sector and government as being important. We've heard about building capability and the labour force. We've heard about incentives. We've heard about the relationship between the accelerated goals that we have seen here in Saudi Arabia and the ability to be successful as a result of the support to achieve those goals. We've heard about hubs or clusters, and we're going to talk more about that, so I might leave that. We've got about 12 minutes, so I'll leave that to the next question. Structure, policy, infrastructure, policy and technology. So with all of those things that you've heard, what's your perspective, Minister, about what do you see from your experience as being the critical success factors for creating the right kind of conditions for beneficiation, for vertical integration from minerals to the end users?
I think most of the stuff has been, most of the people have already spoken about the critical success factors. And if you were to put one word encapsulating everything, I think I would also err on the side of saying ecology.
Ecosystem.
The entire ecosystem. So if the entire ecosystem is not present, one or two things would not work. That's amply clear. But I think one thing that has not been discussed, I'm sorry, first of all, pardon me, everyone, I was a bit late. I got stuck in traffic. But one thing that I didn't hear from your summary was the sophistication of demand function. So if you look at downstreaming, the most important thing that you find is how demanding and how sophisticated the demand function is, the indigenous demand function is. There are very few examples of one becoming exceptionally good at exports if there is no fierce competition in the local indigenous market. So if you look at all of these people who are exporting, you ask yourself, why are a few countries exporting a few things? If you look at the export of most successful exporting countries, you find that 60 to 70% of their export is driven by 2 or 3 things, and not about thousands of things. So then the question is why? Why these 3 things? And why not the other 100 things? And one of the answers, one of the things, in addition to all of the things that have been spoken about, is the local indigenous fierceness of competition and demand function. So any government policy that creates a windfall for one-off projects, or just gives incentives for one company to come in and so to say root itself, and does not understand that this probably is going to be at the expense of fierce competition because you're giving a head start or you're giving a certain incentive package, not as a matter of policy to everyone, but to anchor a project. And that's why something that you hear over and over again is anchor project, anchor project. Now the anchor project could be a problem, anchor project could also be a solution. If anchor project, the incentives given to the anchor project are afforded to everyone and very soon it leads to fierce dog-eat-dog competition, then you're going to succeed. But if anchor project becomes a client-patron relationship and it becomes, so to say, the source of elite capture, then at the end of the day, you're only going to have 2 companies. And 2 companies would not get you there. So if you want really to move downstream, 2 things that you need to do is, 1, not think projects, think value chains. That's a very important distinction. It depends upon a country's view. And you cannot basically put prior conditions that we'd only let you mine if you do A, B, and C, because they would do A, B, and C if A, B, and C is profitable. So you cannot say you do unprofitable things and then we'd let you do profitable things, because many of the sophisticated players would walk away. But if you move them, incent them through a policy that creates a fierce competition, not just between big players, but also attract smaller players, the SME sector, the packers, the baggers, the logistics people, then I think you're going to succeed at downstreaming, and then you're going to succeed at creating competition. And only then are you going to have the edge. And only if you have the edge, you're going to become a global exporter in that value chain.
Thank you. Thank you for diving so deeply into the idea of ecosystems and what makes them successful. So competition, creating an environment for healthy competition.
Fierce, I said, fierce.
Fierce competition, there you go. Now, we're really running against the clock, and it's such an interesting conversation. I'm going to ask for 1 minute each. What are you most excited about when it comes to beneficiation and the partnerships between government and the private sector? What are you most excited about? So, Suleiman, 1 minute.
The most exciting thing that easy access to the session and to operate your mind very fast by they are solving the entire obstacle you are receiving once you raise it up, which has been getting a great achievement the last 5 years. And I believe with this method they are doing, the cycle for 2030, they will achieve a huge operating mine in the ground and producing, because they are very fast nowadays.
Very fast.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to go to you, Mashari.
Yes, I believe one of the main things that we need to keep in our mind is sustainability. The sustainability to create a value all the times. Because right now we have resources here in Saudi Arabia. We have more than 5,200 locations. We have the assets, we have the money, we have all the infrastructures, and the government, they have the legal as well that empower all the international companies to come. So what we need to do is to create sustainability for the long term. We figure the gaps, and we're trying to fill that gaps immediately with the action plan.
So the speed and the sustainability, I love that. Thank you. I'm going to go to Steele now. What are you most excited about, Steele?
I'll use your word, Wendy, actually. It's the partnership. Because I think, like us, we're a mining company. We're expert in the mining. But talking about downstream, actually, we know there is someone else is doing better, and we need to partner. And also talking about the partnership is the relationship with the government, because this is eventually talking about the policy, talking about how we work with the government. There is a lot of things, and including enhance the education, provide more training to have more skillful labor force, such and such. So the partnership will be the key word, if you ask me. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. And it feels to me, it's my second trip to Saudi Arabia. It feels to me like Saudi Arabia is the home of partnerships. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Fadi, and I'm going to go to you, Minister, last, if that's okay. I'll give you the last word.
Thank you. And saying more about strategic relationship, because with these new industries, you need to rely on those mature technologies that are already being used in different countries with different companies or by different companies. So building the win-win relationship to introduce those industries in the kingdom and take part of the global supply chain. An example of the geopolitical tensions. Today, we have an opportunity in the kingdom to be a reliable supplier of titanium metal to the aerospace industry, for example. So these opportunities comes from time to time, but the strategic relationship with the business partners also give you another benefit, which is capability buildup. Those companies and those countries have spent many years developing their capabilities. And our mission here is to learn that, accelerate the learning from those knowledge and know-how, and build a win-win relationship to be part of it, part of the global supply chain, and continue our journey. My last statement is that our observation that the incentives need to be activated quickly so we can reduce the fiscal risk on the private sector, and will allow the journey to continue, developing those industrial hubs, new mining applications, and new metal production.
Fantastic, thank you. And just before I go to you, Minister, I have really enjoyed, in preparing for this panel, I've really enjoyed learning about the journeys that you have each been taking with your companies, learning about, so Suleiman said to me that he's very proud of realising a 40-year dream.
Yes.
And Fadi spoke to me about a 30-year dream with Tashnia and titanium. And Mashari's is building a dream as well with his organisation, and CMOC too with molybdenum and the global nature. So it feels like there's a lot of energy and momentum. So moving now to you, Minister, what are you most excited about in the context of this discussion, downstream value?
Well, I think most of being the last, everything has been said, so some of this appears to be repetitive. But I think it's not just a relationship or strategic relationship, it's the quality of relationship. And it's the quality of relationship not just with the business partners, but it's the quality of relationship between the business sector, between the financial sector, between the government and academia. And academia is going to become more important as you move forward, because the nature of mining is going to change in the future. Right now, what appears to be labor intensive is going to be science and technology intensive. You're going to have miniaturization, you're going to have robotics, you're going to have omnipresence of systems of information transmission systems in real time. You're going to have the data processing capability, which would allow you to analyze things that used to take years, 5 minutes or 4 minutes, and very soon a minute or less. So that kind of capability, no one company can house. So for you to have an external face which interacts with all of these little experiments and little labs and little scientific kind of things happening, which are going to be the drivers of your future, if you leave this to a chance, the likelihood is that you may become a sort of a dinosaur, huge, humongous, but not terribly useful. So I think the ease of doing business comes from the quality of relationship between government, between private sector, and the academia. I think the future and the technology and what it would take to succeed is not housed in any mineral or mining corporation right now. So your ability to tap into those shops where the future is getting constructed is what excites me the most. I think the nature with zero carbon and sustainability, these are ideas, only ideas if they're not supported by creativity, ingenuity, new technology, new business models, new way of looking at things. So newness that is ahead of us is what excites me the most.
What a fantastic and exciting note to end on. The creativity, the ingenuity. We're moving from labour intensity to science and technology intensity. We've heard this week, these couple of days, about how much change is happening in the mining and downstream value use of minerals. And you've heard here a wonderful conversation about the things that we can do to make the future successful in creating downstream value use. So I'd like you to join me in thanking our wonderful panel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.